Hi, this is Steve with Paladino Power Project, and I'm bringing another video in the series on adjusting a static training plan. This time, how to determine whether to adjust weekly duration or long run duration, and not only determine whether, but also how to. So, um, stay with me, and we're going to go through these various permutations on adjusting, modifying the plan for duration elements. So, um, and I mentioned the modifying static training plan series. I'm trying to get a number of different videos that cover the various questions on modifying a static training plan. I've already done two videos in the series. This is the third. And the prior videos were planning, advanced planning for holiday weeks and life happens, contingencies, and then followed that up with how to include a B race in your plan, how to modify that to include that. I'm going to put the links to those videos in the description of this video. I'm also going to continue to use this particular little depiction of a training plan and with the testing weeks marked as follows, the taper weeks over here, and the training weeks in the lighter blue color. So we'll use that as a reference from time to time. And also, in this particular video, just just for purposes of illustration, I'm going to use one of my Final Surge plans, level 4 marathon with 5 runs per week. All right. You may be using a different plan. You may be using a stride plan or one of the other Final Surge level plans, or even a plan that's not even mine. That's okay. I'm just using this for illustration purposes. So let's get on with it. The first thing when considering to modify a plan for duration elements, whether it's the weekly duration or the long run duration, um, let's look at week number one. Always look at week number one. And is this week number one? Is it over your head or is it way under your current level? All right. So this is level 4 marathon plan from Final Surge, 5 runs per week. You start with an hour and a half long run with 20-minute marathon power tempo. Have two workouts, two interval workouts. Every week is going to be either interval and tempo or two interval workouts, and then two easy runs in this particular 5 run per week plan with off days as depicted here. All right. This format will follow pretty much through all these training weeks, not necessarily the testing weeks, but for training weeks. All right. So first look at that and say, okay, is this above or below my level? If it's above your current level, then you should consider doing like a build plan prior to this marathon plan. If it's below what your current level is, let's go to the next step. So look at that, and this depicts that level 4 Final Surge marathon plan, 5 days per week. So we start here and we're looking at this side over here and determine, is this above or below what my current abilities are. Then we're going to go to, okay, let's look at the peak training week. So that would be week number 15 in the plan. All right, so week number 15, and now we're looking at it, and I'm going. You go ask yourself the same question: is this above or below what I'm able to do? All right, 3 hour long run, hour and 20 minute interval session, hour and 20 minute interval session, 55 minute easy aerobic runs. Um, if you find yourself saying, well, I'm going to go go back a couple of slides here. If you find yourself saying, "Wait, that's about right for me, but this is too low," then don't worry. Start at too low. You're going to get there. See the progressions that are built into the plan, both for the overall weekly volume, which is the blue, and the grayish is the long run. There are progressions involved, and that's the key are the progressions. All right, you want to consider the built-in progressions. Or put them in so they're progressing at a safe level. All right, so for example, in the long runs, you can see we're progressing week to week. It's 30 minutes, 20 minutes. Then it goes to 20, 20, 20, 20. Then it goes down to 10 because now you're getting more fatigue. You're getting more towards the peak of the plan. It's only 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, right? So the progressions become a little bit smaller towards the end for that. In the long runs, look at the progressions. 10, 10, 10, 10. It's pretty much 10-minute progressions in the long runs. And then you sort of plateau 250 to 250, 255 to 3 hours. So they sort of soften a little bit towards the end a little bit. But those progressions are there to allow you to build, allow your body to adapt to the added load each week. We're not overloading it, we're progressing at a nice rate. So look at the progressions, and like I said, if this is fine at the end, then there's no need to adjust the beginning, because if you bump that up, then you have no progression. Let's say you bump that up 20 minutes and everything goes up 20 minutes, but then you get to this point and you're going, okay, I don't need any more progressions anymore. Well, now you have a plan that's pretty flat. There's not much progression. There's not much change in homeostasis or stimulus. So if this is okay, then leave this alone. On the other hand, if you go, okay, I have room to grow here, and I could add a little here and add a little bit over here, and that's all good, then fine. Then you're still in the okay, how do we get around to adding this duration? So let's talk about adding to a long run. All right. And the key is, let's look at the end long run. All right. That's where you start in this. You look at the end long run, and the default peak long run for marathon plans is 3 hours. All right. If you do not cover 20 miles or more in 3 hours, then you should consider adding long run duration. There is a number of studies that show a correlation between the number of 20-mile runs prior to a marathon and marathon performance. So I like athletes to get into that 20 miles as the minimum. All right. So the way that breaks down is, if you run 9 minutes per mile on average in your long runs in 3 hours, that's going to end up with 20 miles for that 3-hour long run at the peak long run week. Same thing, 5:35 per kilometer ends up about the same amount of distance covered in that 3 hours. So now here's the example. If you're running slower than that, you want to add a little bit of time, if possible. So a 10-minute mile runner, for averaging in a long run for 20 miles, that's about 200 minutes, or 3 hours and 20 minutes. So you're gonna, in that case, you're gonna look to add 20 minutes, not to just this long run, because we want to maintain those progressions. We're going to add 20 minutes to every long run. So not just this one, but every one. So your starting would then be 1 hour and 50. So now you ask the question, okay, I'm making this one a 20-mile run. I'm adding 20 minutes. Can I handle an hour and 50 minutes at the start of the plan? If you can't handle an hour and 50 minutes at the start of the plan so you can maintain that added 20 minutes to every one of these long runs, if you can't do that, then you either start a build plan and work backwards until you can get to something you can handle and then progress from there. Or you abandon it, you just stick with the plan because you can't handle an hour and 50 minutes at the start. All right? So that's for adding to a long run. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is if someone's running faster than about a 7:12 mile, all right, is a 7:12 7 minutes and 12 seconds per mile for 3 hours ends up to be about 25 miles. I don't think there's much need to run more than 25 miles. And it can even go a little bit shorter, maybe cut down to 22 miles. But when you're running faster than 7:12 per mile on average in your long runs, then you may wish to shorten the long run. So let's say, hey, I want to peak out at 23 miles. And I average 7 minutes per mile. Well, that would be 161 minutes or 2 hours and 41 minutes. So you're going to subtract 19 minutes from every long run all the way through the plan. Again, the reason you're taking it from every long run is so you can keep the progressions. All right? So that's adding to a long run. And again, if you're doing it to one, you're doing it to all of them. All right? And just a note, I'm using the marathon plan as the reference for this video, but just as other guidelines, if you're using a half marathon plan or 10K plan, my usual recommendations for a full marathon, you like your peak long run to be in that 20 to 25 mile range. All right, at least hit the 20. All right, or 32 to 40 kilometers, at least 32. Well, here's my usual targets for a half marathon. I like athletes to get at least to 15 and stronger athletes up to 18 miles or 25 to 30 kilometers, right? 10K, 12 to 15 miles would be the peak long run, or 20 to 25 kilometers. So you just look at those, do the maths, and adjust the long run accordingly for the duration. All right. Now let's say I'm not just looking to change the long run. I want to look at the whole weekly volume of the sessions. All right. So we're looking at this, and it's the same thing. We're looking at, okay, I could add a little bit there. I could add a little bit here. So let's say I want to add 40 minutes to this. So there's 40 minutes to every one, and you end up with 8 hours and 10 minutes here. And you started with 5 hours and 20 minutes here. But everyone gets that added 40 minutes so you can maintain those progressions. All right? So again, look at week number 1 and, okay, I'm going to add, I've already determined that I'm going to add 10 minutes here. I'm just using it as an example. I want to add 40 minutes total. That means I have 20 minutes to distribute to these other sessions. And so how do I go about doing that? Well, first thing I want to caution you on is that an easy aerobic run, these guys right here, you want to make sure that the training stress score, the TSS or RSS in stride parlance, is less than 100% of current CTL. All right. So if you say, I want to make this 45, but that 45-minute easy run is going to end up with an RSS that's higher than your current 42-day rolling average, exponentially weighted rolling average, or your chronic training load, CTL, then you don't do that. Be cautious about adding time uh, in a cavalier fashion to these easy runs. They're there. You're going to get your adequate dose of aerobic running, but you don't want to have them to be so much that it's keeping you too fatigued for these, that you have lingering fatigue. So that's one sort of hard stop here. If the RSS becomes more than the current chronic training load, then you don't add there. All right. So, and then again, if you're adding it, you're going to add it all the way across the line. So let's look at it a little bit closer. Um, and let's say we'll go back to that example. We're adding 10 minutes to the long run, and we want to add a total of 40 minutes. So we've got 30 minutes to distribute. So you might look at 10 here, 10 here, 5 here, 5 here. All right? So that's 5, 5, that's 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes you've just added to the plan. All right? And now you want to make sure that you've added it on the front end. You got to add the same amount all the way through because of the progressions. You want to look at the end and see, okay, what did I just do to myself? So this becomes 310. This becomes an hour and 30, and this becomes an hour, and that becomes an hour. So if that seems reasonable to you, then that's the way to do it. All right. So now let's talk about, we've determined we're going to add 5 minutes in easy run. Okay, that's pretty simple. We're adding 5 minutes of less than or equal to 80% of CP. That's not a big deal. What about the workout sessions and the long runs and so forth? So within a long run, if you're going to add time, let's say in this case we're adding 15 minutes plus 15 minutes to a long run. Generally add it to that steady portion. Okay, so there's a 10-minute easy gradual buildup, then you get into steady, and then you have marathon power tempo. Generally add it to the steady portion. All right. Now, if you're feeling, that, hey, I want to, well, let's go back to finish this topic up. So in the beginning, you're adding 15 minutes, right? So the steady portion becomes 65 instead of 50. And in the end, you're adding 15 minutes because you're keeping the same add. That becomes 2 hours and 15 minutes of steady running before you hit the marathon power. But let's say, oh, I want to have more marathon power tempo duration in my long runs. Then that's fine if you feel you can tolerate it. So if we're adding 15 minutes, in that case, we're going to add 10 minutes to the steady portion and 5 minutes to the MP tempo. We're not going to add it to the front end, that 10-minute warm-up. We don't need more than that. And we're not going to add it to the back end, which is, about generally around 10 to 15 minutes of easy running at the end. We're adding it in here. So we're adding 10 minutes to the steady, 5 minutes to the MP tempo, and at 15 weeks, week 15, this is a typo down here, we've gone, we're going to be now up to 2 hours and 10 minutes here and 45 minutes here. All right? So just add the same thing all the way across. All right? Now, in a interval session, let's say we're adding, we started with that one example of adding 10 minutes here, 5 here, 5 here, 10 here, 10 here. All right, so we have 10 minutes to add into these. Generally going to add it to the cool down, after the actual session, workout session, or the warm up, or both. You could add a little bit to the warm up if you want to have a little bit longer warm up, or you add it to the cool down at the end. All right. You don't change the session. Keep those the same. Um, and again, you're going to do the same thing if you're adding, let's say, 5 and 5 to cool down a warm up. You're going to do that pretty much through the whole plan. If you're adding 10 minutes to the cool down and nothing to the warm up, do it the same way through the whole plan. All right, through the whole plan. So let's just go through a few examples. If you're adding 20 minutes to a long run, all right, so we're just down here. That's going to be 150 at the start, 3 hours and 20 minutes at the end for the long run. But it also is adding total week duration, so this becomes 7 hours and 50 minutes, and this becomes 5 hours at the beginning, and so on. So you've added 20 minutes to this one session. That's 20 minutes that's going to be added automatically to your weekly total to keep the progressions. Here's another example. Let's say we're adding 10 minutes to the long run, 30 minutes to the other sessions, so 40 minutes total. So we're adding 10 minutes to the long run, so that becomes 3 hours and 10. This becomes 140, and extrapolate in between. You're adding 10 minutes to each interval and tempo session. All right, so that's plus 20. There's 2 interval sessions. That's plus 20, and we'll probably add that to let's say the cool down section. 10 minutes more to the after the primary interval session's done. To each of those, 20 minutes total, and then 5 minutes to the each of the easy runs. There we go. 10, 20, 40. All right. And let's say we have a faster runner that this is okay. 3 hours is going to put me way too far. I want to max out at 23 miles. So I'm going to subtract 5 minutes here. You're going to subtract all the way across. So you're starting at 125, progress to 2 hours and 55, right? But we want to add 40 minutes total to the week. So that's means that you're going to have 45 minutes to the weekday sessions because you're subtracting 5 minutes from the long run session, right? So in this case, we'll add 15 minutes to each interval and tempo session. That gives me 30 minutes more per week, and 7.5 to each easy run. That's 15 minutes. So that's 45 minutes added to the weekday sessions, minus 5 from the long run, and now you've added 40 minutes total to each of the weeks. All right. Well, let's look at a couple of other little elements before we conclude. One is if I have a 5-day plan, can I just bump up on one of the easy days? Okay, well, you can. Let's say I want to make this just an easy 20-minute shakeout run. You can do that, add it to every week of the plan, right? So add it to every week of the plan. All right, but let's say you're doing it sporadically. Let's say I'm going to add it this week, but not next week. Well, if you're adding it this week, then let's say you're adding 20 minutes, right? Or let's say you're adding a 30-minute easy run on that Friday. So we're going to add 30 minutes here, right? So that means that if you didn't have it the prior week, you want to make sure you're accounting for that 30 minutes in each one of these sessions or the long run. And then when you add those easy runs in that open day, you're subtracting that from the other days, all right? So you may have determined, okay, I'm going to add 40 minutes, 10 minutes to the long run, 30 minutes to other sessions, which we've already showed this slide. But now you're going to add that 30 on 1 week, you're going to add that 30-minute easy run on a Friday. Well, that means you get rid of these guys, keep the long run progressions. We got to keep those progressions, but you're going to subtract that because you've added the 30 minutes here. That way the progressions are kept intact. All right. So it's either you're adding it to, a modest easy run and you do it to every week, or if you're periodically adding an easy run, then you subtract from the other ones and add that 30 minutes on that open day. All right. One final element is if you're adjusting volume, adjust it on the training weeks. These weeks here, the testing weeks, they're supposed to be a down week, and you don't need to add your volume there. All right. And certainly don't do it on the tapers. Let the tapers be, let them bring you down as they exist in the plan. Don't change these particular weeks. If you're modifying duration, do it here on all the training weeks. So, again, I just have this to illustrate. This is a down week. That's a testing week. Week 4, week 8, week 12. All right. I didn't even put the taper weeks in here. Don't touch those. All right. So there you have it. There's how you go about adjusting either weekly duration, long run duration, and or in a static training plan to get something that is more specific to what you like. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.